I'm starting my day with some hot buckwheat cereal. Here's my buckwheat cereal with soy vanilla creamer. I've got a little bit of cinnamon in it and so half a banana and 3 strawberries. Hey everybody, Kat here, Vegas Fruity. It's Monday morning. I hope you can have a wonderful, marvelous day. I wanted to update you on a couple of things. I'm going to be very real with you here. Not that I'm not usually real with you, but I'm going to tell you a couple of things that might knock your socks off. So I went to the doctor and I came back and anyway, obviously, we went over my blood test, but I walked out of there and I asked him for a copy of it. He said he was going to give it to me, and I walked out with a stack of papers, but it wasn't in that stack. So now I have to go back to the office and see if I can get a copy of it because I can't remember all those numbers. But anyway, I'm still getting over the sinus infection, which he actually put me on antibiotics to try to clear up. So that's what's really helped. But he actually had to put me on 2 different other antibiotics that were really strong, which I have to take for 2 weeks. And they're really awful because they're so strong that, they make me really sick, and I wake up with a metallic taste in my mouth and a headache every morning. So, but they're very important because one of the tests he had me take was a breath test. I've mentioned before that my stomach pains have been getting worse. Digestion's always been a little hard for me. I've had different issues, but lately they've seemed to get a little worse or something. And I had some issues. I don't want to give you too much TMI, but I've had some bleeding, and and so that's what prompted me to go in and see what's going on. Well, it turns out the test that he had me take, the breath test, actually measures out a bacteria that would be alive in your stomach if it tests positive, and it did come back positive. So I do have a particular type of bacteria that's in my stomach that I guess it's a spiral shape. So what happens is it embeds itself into your stomach lining, and it causes all kinds of damage in there. And it actually has its own form of, I know it sounds gross, but like mucus, so that it protects itself from the stomach acid, and it lets out its own acid that kind of protects it so that it can live in that environment. And if it's untreated for a certain amount of time, it could actually cause bleeding ulcers and longer than that, cancers. So I've got to go through more tests to make sure I'm clear on those 2 things. But anyway, that really kind of grossed me out to hear it. I asked him, well, did I eat something? Where do you think that, I picked this up? And he said, well, you can get it from other people. It's just that somehow I got it, and it's actually a bacteria that can live in your body for decades. And you can have trouble. So I don't know how long I've had it. I know it's always been painful as long as I can remember, but sometimes more than others. So I'm not quite sure, where it came from at first. But in any case, we're trying to kill it. And I should be all clear, which I can't retest to make sure I'm clear until next month, because even after the antibiotics, the bacteria can still let off a vapor or a reading that says that it's still around even when it's not. So it leaves kind of like a trail or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, so I'll figure out what's going on. I'll let you know. It's actually good that I'm getting this taken care of. A couple of the symptoms of having this bacteria were, number 1, bloating, which I've had for a very long time, and also what else was it? Decreased appetite, which I've noticed I've also had. So I was attributing that to my age, because I know a lot of people, when they get older, they actually do eat less, but that may not have been it, or maybe it was just part of it, So, but anyway, that's half of it. The other half of it is I actually talked to him about some of my blood tests, which I have to go back to really quick to preface this. When I was in 5th grade, I was about 10 or 11, and I remember sitting at my desk clutching my chest because I used to have chest pains as a child, and it would just drive me to tears, and I'd be clutching it and holding it, waiting for it to leave. And so, my mom took me to the doctor, and I had it double checked with a couple of them just to she was like, what's going on? And none of the other kids in my family tested positive for this, but I had off the charts. Now I was very athletic. I've always been thin, you know, and I didn't eat any different. I ate maybe less than other people in my family even, you know, so it didn't make sense. But the doctor, I remember his face looking very confused, and he looked at my mom and he said, well, her cholesterol is like way off the charts. What are you feeding her? And my mom said, well, it's funny because she kind of threw me under the bus, you know, and she said, well, she likes cheese, you know. Well, I wasn't eating any more cheese than anybody else in my family. But in any case, he told her, you know, she said, well, what do I feed her? And he said, well, why don't you give her potatoes, you know? But, you know, unfortunately, she also cooked those potatoes in like bacon fat and things like that, so it didn't help. But we kind of forgot about it. She just kind of put it in the back of my mind, you know. All my life, she would just say, oh, you have high cholesterol, so you can't eat this or that. But, you know, we didn't really understand what that meant. And then now, the other day, I go to the doctor, and I am not fake with what I have on a daily basis. If you go to my Instagram and you see I have a food diary. Basically, that is how I eat. And a lot of times I'll go without taking pictures of my food because it's all the same. It's the same thing. I eat very healthy. I eat vegan foods, very low fat. I exercise every single day, doing something. Some days I'll do like more than others, and those are the days that I figure I exercise. But I am active on a daily basis. I have 3 little kids, you know, I have to be active. Anyway, yeah, I'm not a cheater. I don't, you know, I'm not out having hamburgers or anything like that. Now, you know, the doctor said, he said, well, the other things look good. Believe it or not, I'm not anemic. I thought I was. Turns out that all of those sluggish symptoms and everything were due to the stomach bacteria that I had. So anyway, yeah, so he said, well, the one thing that does bother me though, and this is gonna knock your socks off, get ready for this. My cholesterol is 380. That is amazing. Yeah, so what I found out was basically, he says, you know, it is genetic. It is a genetic defect in my liver. It does not process cholesterol. You know, you always hear doctors say, well, except for the people who make cholesterol, some people make more cholesterol than others, and it's a genetic thing. That's me. There's 1 in 500 people who have something called familial hypercholesterolemia, and that is what I have. And I had it as a child, and I have it now. And what it means is that no matter what I do, no matter how well I eat, my liver is not able to, you know, get rid of or metabolize cholesterol properly. So it ends up getting backed up in my system. And yes, I make cholesterol. So my LDL cholesterol, my bad, was really high. But he said, well, your good cholesterol looks good. And he says everything else looks great. Your B12 looks great. Your iron is great. But he said, this really concerns me. So basically, I found out I have what's called FH for short. And I've been reading up on it, and he backed it up too. He wanted to put me on medication right away. And I said, no, I don't want to go on medicine for cholesterol. That's like crazy. But what I'm reading is that nearly 100% of everyone who's diagnosed with this does need to be on some medication, and that is to bring it down, because with diet and exercise, you can only bring it down, I don't know, 20, 30 points, whatever. It's not going to be below 200. And so, so I said, let's do this, because I want to know, since I've had this my whole life, what can happen is, you know, your cholesterol will, it's like you go through advanced arteriosclerosis, you know, that it's just not natural. But I want to know, I'm going to ask him if he can do, I want to say it's not an angiogram. It's another thing where they'll put the dye in your arteries, and be able to test and see how clogged they are. And I want to know if mine are clogged or not, and at what percentage, before I go on any kind of medication still. And he said, well, you know, this is a really big risk factor, but you know, you look great in all these other areas. So anyway, so what we've decided to do was, he said, I'll give you 2 months to try to bring down your points some, and then, you know, we'll talk about putting you on medication. So before the medication happens, I want to be sure to test and see if I have arterial damage, what that looks like. But right now, I have to really do my best to cut out any kind of basically fat and anything that I have to change some things up. I mean, I eat very, very well. I almost feel like, what else can I do? But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to concentrate on this. Yes, and if you can't, I don't know if you can see it. Yes, The Starch Solution by Dr. McDougall. I've been reading it very thoroughly this weekend. And I'm going to be making as many changes as I can to fit in with that. And then at the end of the 2 months, we'll see what my number looks like. I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be just as high, if not maybe a few points lower. So I do have that situation. I have FH, and if you have this, I have to have my son checked out, our biological son, because it's your children, biological children have 50% chance of having it if one of your parents have it. Now, if both of the parents have it, you have a much more serious form of this. Not that this is not serious, because anybody who has FH is somebody who's walking around who could be looking, most people look very healthy. You cannot not even tell they have anything like this. They may have very healthy lifestyles and yet still just drop dead one day because of the damage that's been done that nobody sees. But I mean, I don't mean to be fatalistic or anything like that, but it is very serious. So if you do have this, or you suspect you have it, you may want to check your cholesterol in your blood and maybe look in your family, because one of the doctors that heads this sort of research up at Stanford said, you know, we don't find people who have FH, we find families who have FH. So you really need to be aware if there's anybody in your family, if you have a parent who has it. And come to find out, my dad has it, but my mom does not. So that's why my dad, who's been largely plant-based for years, has had a quadruple bypass. And that is why. And I take after him. So anyway, thanks for hanging in there with me. I know this was a long one, but I had to talk to you all so you know what I'm doing. And if anybody else has a suspicion that they have this, you know, I don't know, send me an email. Maybe we can connect. There's actually an FH Foundation. You can actually look to them for more information. So anyway, I will see you later. That's that. And just stick with me on my journey for the next 2 months. Let's see if we can get this lower so that I don't have to take those stupid meds. But of course, if it means my life, I will. So we'll see. All right, everybody. I will see you later. Love y'all. Bye-bye.